couple of minutes before like class technically starts, but pretty much as soon as that time hits the 30, I'm going to actually, you know what? Let me see something. I just realized if nope, nothing. Okay. Okay. Actually, I guess technically I should just. I just want to get started. There's not enough time for everything.
Makes more time.
Oh, guess what? I found out what's wrong with my knee.
Ooh, what's wrong with your knee?
It's fat. It's fat and cartilage that's stuck in between my femur and my kneecap.
Ew.
Yeah. And like it keeps getting pinched and stuff, and that's why it hurts so much. But I get a cortisone shot on Friday and possibly surgery, so we'll see how this goes.
Oh no.
Yeah. I kind of want the surgery though, like, cause they're like the cortisone shot might work, and it takes 8 weeks to fully see if it does. Well, the surgery has like a recovery time of a week or two, and will 100% work. But my mom didn't want it.
I don't like that there's two Miss Burks, yet they're both out of sync from each other.
Well, this one is the one that you're going to see when I'm presenting. And this one is the real me. And they're opposite.
Yeah. Thomas, you want to see this my trio appear?
Yeah, actually.
I'm frightened.
For the final day, I guess I'll break it out one last time. Before I create people.
Today's the day when we can go into 7th period.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Oh god, he's multiplying.
I have food with me.
Camera number 2 is up.
I just ate.
That way I don't break any backups.
All right. Okay. So, we are going to talk about the Baroque period today. I'm going to give you guys basic information. This is all kind of the same stuff, fair game for the test. I would like you guys to pay attention. There's a lot of information. Let me see everyone's faces before we start, please. Let me see your face.
I'm eating breakfast.
Well, eat breakfast with me seeing your face. Don't make me ask you again. Bryce, let me see your face. Thomas, let me see your face.
I'm getting there.
Ay, Dios mío. No sé qué les pasa. Okay. So, the Baroque time period was the time period that came after the Renaissance. It was, how do I say this? It was a period where the, well, I'll just go through it with you. Now, this is what I expect. Unless pretty much for this entire lesson, I want to see everyone's faces. Some of you multiple faces, because I want to kind of guarantee that you're paying attention to me. And I should be the most important person in your world for the next 30 minutes, okay? Okay, great. So, please pay attention. If you have a question, go ahead and like, chime in, but it should be a lot of just like information gathering. And then, and yeah, so here we go. All right, here we go. All right.
Why is there a class on iClicker?
Oh, you weren't here when I said don't worry about iClicker. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties right now at the moment, and so I don't feel like messing with it because the end. No real reason. Okay. So, the Baroque music period lasted from 1600 to 1750. As you can see, the time periods are getting shorter and shorter. The Baroque period was the beginning of what is called the Common Practice era or CPE, and the CPE consisted of the Baroque period, the Classical period, and the Romantic period. So those three musical periods were the beginning of what's this CPE, Common Practice. And this is where, and the reason why is because during the Renaissance, you had the unification of musical language, and then the Baroque, Classical, Romantic, and beyond was taking the Common Practice and actually utilizing it. So therefore, Common Practice. Okay, here we go. Some basic information about the Baroque period. The first thing is that the word Baroque comes from Portuguese Barroco, which means misshapen pearl. If you remember the during the period, we talked about the Baroque orchestra, or where it was the groups were starting to mix. So Baroque is broken, misshapen. Like it was a kind of a derogatory term. And there's kind of many reasons for it. So it was negative. There was over ornamentation. So at this point, many different artists and composers and writers of literature were starting to kind of be very dramatic and bringing about a very different style that was totally new. Before it was like, very one hand and kind of melodic, and it was simple, but really it started to develop this over ornamentation. Like the Renaissance, the Baroque period started in Italy. Things were exaggerated, so paintings and different things had exaggerated features, exaggerated like motions, hand movements, not movements, but hand positions. Everything was over exaggerated, and because of that, things were easily interpreted. There were a lot of room for interpretation. If you saw a person dressed in a certain way for a certain reason, like most of the time, it was just meant to be easily interpreted. At this point, the Baroque musical period was supported by the church. It was still the church was still a very major part of the time period. It was said that they were supported by the church because they still wanted to be easily accessible to the normal people who were not literate and were not fluent in Latin, and music and artwork was still considered a form of worship. And that doesn't necessarily go away as we go on. It just gets lessened. The people that you know in the future, like the Beethovens and the Mozarts, they are not for the church. They're totally secular. Not totally, but they are secular. But it doesn't mean that it went away. It just wasn't important or as an integral, central part of why people were composing or writing or painting or whatever. And at this point, there was a huge influx of aristocracy who would use artwork to show off how wealthy they were, which is kind of normal today, right? Like if you go to a famous person, they'll have a Picasso or a Dali or something, and the reason is because they can, and us common folk can't, or me common folk can't. All right. So a couple of examples of different artists that you may know. I don't know if you know all of these, but these are some pretty famous names. So the first one is Velázquez. He did this painting. He always as I think I remember that he always has himself in his paintings. And he is this guy right here. Okay, so he's painting himself, painting this, right? So it's like a self-portrait within his portrait. And that's very common for him. Las Meninas is the title of this piece, and it means ladies in waiting. So they're court girls. And there's a whole lot of history that I learned all about this piece of art, and I don't remember it, but if you research it, it's actually pretty interesting. Okay, the next artist is Rembrandt. This is called The Night Watch. Typo. Tons of detail, lots of things going on. There's like an angel here, which is like kind of rando for the fact that, you know, this is a battle scene. Same sort of thing. You could do a lot of research on it, but I just wanted to show you. And then the last one is Rubens. This is the Elevation of the Cross. This is actually 3 pieces. So this is the centerpiece. This is, you could see, hopefully you can kind of tell that these are framed differently. So they're all 3 different pieces. So the first one, and then you would put the other 2 on the side. But they are all one giant piece of artwork. And you can kind of see, like I said before, like things were very like dramatic and obtuse and just kind of like big. And you can really see emotions and movement in the artwork, even though it's obviously still. And that's kind of a characteristic of the Baroque period. Okay. So, during this time, there were also very many techniques were improved greatly. Thomas, you are watching me, right? Okay, just wanted to make sure. The techniques were improved greatly. This is because the instrument construction was made far better. Violins and cellos and basses were starting to become very uniform. They were starting to become very uniformed, and because of that, more people could play it. And if you learned, you know, in one area, you learned it in another area, and it just kind of was easy. And also because of, like I said before, the unification of musical language in the Renaissance made it so that people were able to learn much more quickly. At this point, people, composers and performers were starting to use trills, which if you are any sort of woodwind, you know that trills are, you start on one note and you go up and down to the next note in the key signature. So if you're on C, you go da, that's a trill. And tremolo is going up, back, down, back. Okay, so da, that's a tremolo. Da, da, like that sort of thing goes up and down and back. Da, da, da. However, they didn't use the vibrato. Vibrato is a singing voice technique where if you were to sing one long whole note, it would make like the vibration sound, the I can't do that without singing loudly, and it's really awkward, so I'm not going to do it. But if we were in class, I would really do it. But it's like the vibration sound of your voice. They did not really use that in this time period. And at this point, you had the development of 2 very, very important musical concepts. The first one is counterpoint. This was developed in the Renaissance, if you remember, I did talk about it, but it was really took the foothold in the Baroque period. And the counterpoint is developing melody and counter melody being played at the same exact time. This was not something that they did before, right? You would always have a melody and really that's it, you know, and your melody could have harmonies, but the melody was the melody was the melody. There was no real any other sound. But during the Baroque period, you had the melody and then you have counter melody, and the 2 were played at the same time, which is very different and totally new. Something that's very common for us now, but was not for that time period. And then you had basso continuo. Basso continuo, which if you can interpret is pretty straightforward. Basso continuo, which is continuous bass. So like bum 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 bum, like just that bass line continuing and being the bottom half of a melody. This is where you started to develop that. So, Bryce, if it wasn't for the Baroque period, we would have no use for you. You're welcome.
Versus.
Okay. Now, there are a bunch of major styles that were developed. The harpsichord was still a very main instrument during this time period. You will hear it in almost every single piece of music, or in a majority, I should say, in a majority of the pieces of music. It was either a solo piece or with other instruments. However, woodwinds were not a strong suit yet. So you had harpsichord and string instruments. And that's really all that you are gonna hear when we play today. When we play the music, you're gonna hear harpsichord and string instruments. There were some flutes, but trumpets were not gonna be used. Clarinet was not, like, it wasn't common. It just wasn't common. This is still the 1600s to 1750. This is still a long time ago where they didn't really develop those instruments well. All right, 4 major styles of music. We had the development of the concerti. The concerti is essentially, so concerto or concerti is plural concerto. Concerto is the one solo instrument with accompaniment. One or 2 or 3 of the same solo instrument with accompaniment. Like, for example, when I graduated, I did Mozart's Concerto in A. It's like a 35-minute piece. I was the main part, so it's a clarinet concerto, etc. So that was developed in the Baroque period, which is great because Mozart is in the classical period, so if it wasn't for the Baroque period, I wouldn't have been able to play that. So, fun fact. Okay, a sonata is usually a keyboard instrument, sometimes a violin, but those are the only 2 instruments that you have a sonata for in this time period. And it can be accompanied by other instruments. It did not have to be, but it was 3 to 4 independent movements that varied in both keys, tempo, and the mood. So they did not have to match at all. They did not have to go together. Opera was huge. It was such a big deal during this time period. Super bombastic, always drama. Not always, but it was a drama. And it was kind of the, you would say it's a precursor to our modern day musical, but it was so much more important culturally to them than musical is for us. Musicals we listen to and we perform in and we know about because we enjoy it. Opera was like a way of life, and it was super big and important. It was always sung, so there's no spoken part, different than a musical, with instruments backing them. So the singers were number 1, and they were performed for major occasions like dynastic marriages. Dynastic marriages meaning dynasties, so like big court king queen type marriages. It was reformed in the 1700s, so towards the end of the Baroque period, to remove comedic and tragic operas, so that they would be separated. So it became more of just drama, and it did not have comedic. You actually ended up developing opera comique, which is a whole nother thing, and I can't get into, but operas were different than tragedies and comicals operas. Okay. And then lastly, you had the cantata, which is choral. It always told a story, and was a solo performer. Okay, here are composers. Okay, here we go. So, and we're going to listen to these today. So I'm going to run through this. The music that we're going to listen to are the ones that are here. So the first one is Johann Sebastian Bach. He was German. We're going to listen to his Toccata and Fugue in D minor. Jay's Joy of Man's Desiring. I picked pieces of music for each of these composers that you totally know, but you don't know that you know. except for the last one. But anyway. Okay, next one is George Friedrich Handel. He was German. He later became a very big composer for like the British side, but it doesn't change his like ethnicity or background. But he did like become a British composer. And we're going to listen to his Messiah, and we're going to listen to the Hallelujah chorus of his Messiah. Then we have Antonio Vivaldi. He is Italian. Okay, so by the way, all of these are pictures. So this is Bach, these two right here. This is Handel, these two right here. Here we've got Vivaldi. He was Italian. He was a violin player, and we're going to listen to his piece Four Seasons. Arcangelo Antonio Carelli, he was Italian as well. He was a violinist, and we're going to listen to his violin sonata. And then Henry Purcell was English, and we're going to listen to his opera, Dido and Aeneas. We're going to listen to Dido's Lament of Dido and Aeneas. I tried to find pieces that match these new styles. So we're going to listen. So Handel and Vivaldi are both going to be concertos. Corelli is going to be a sonata, and Purcell is going to be an opera. So we are going to listen to 3 of the 4 new genres of music. So yeah, I did define the best that I could with that. So here we go. So lots of listening. All right, here we go. Tell me, just give a thumbs up if you can hear the piece when I play. Okay. I wish we had time to listen through all of it. I just wanted to give you an example how awesome that sounds. All right, the next one is Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring. This one is another one that you've heard before. Can you guys hear the basso continuo happening? It goes bum, 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 bum. If you listen very carefully, you can hear the basso continuo. It's like a constant bass sound. Next one is Handel, I can see this piece is 2 hours and 23 minutes. This is a Messiah, which if you've ever listened to or gone to, this is usually played during either Christmas or Easter. And this one is obviously religious. Messiah. I mean, it's in the title. So, but we're going to listen to the Hallelujah chorus, which again, you have all heard at some point in your life. So that piece, couple of little tidbits of information. People will sit through the entire Messiah, and it started at 1 minute. Excuse me, 1 minute. 1 hour and 51 minutes is when the Hallelujah chorus starts, and there's no real people don't really know why this happens. There's lots of speculations and whatever, but the as soon as the Hallelujah chorus starts, it is tradition that everybody in the audience stands up. So if you ever go and watch the Messiah, and you wonder why that happens, or you want to participate in it or whatever, there's lots of, like I said, there's lots of theories as to why it happened the way it did. But it is tradition that you stand up during Hallelujah chorus. And we're probably going to play this piece next year with the chorus, like a joined thing, because it's really pretty. I like it. Okay. The next one is Vivaldi's Four Seasons. This is, again, a piece that you've 100% heard before. I know that you've heard it before. We're going to start with spring. So it goes spring, summer, autumn, winter. And I'll start with spring. And then if you want to listen to the whole thing, it's super awesome and you should. But I just don't have enough time to have you guys listen to it because we got 2 more to go to. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to skip to summer. Oh, there's an ad. Oh, God, and it's a depressing one. Sorry, just gonna... It's like the PETA ones, Eyes of an Angel, Martina McBride or whatever. Makes you sad. So, summer, then you have autumn. Which is a playback to spring, if you could hear. Last you have winter. Winter. Enter. Starts quietly. All right, last one here, or not last one, but second to last one, we have Corelli. He has violin sonatas. He was a violinist, so it makes sense that he wrote violin sonatas. Here is his sixth sonata. As you're listening, you can kind of take a look at what's going on. Everything is, I want you to think to yourself, can you see the movement that I'm talking about when I say, like, they created movement in the brain? They were starting to create this ability to create movement. You can kind of see kind of what is happening. You could feel the emotion of it. And this is something that was new to the time period. So, violin sonata, you could listen to it. This is all 12 of his sonata, or not just his 12, but 12 of his sonatas, 2 hours long. All right. Last one is Purcell, Henry Purcell. He wrote the opera Dido and Aeneas, which the story is, it's a small opera, or a short opera. It's 1 hour long. And the story is about Dido and Aeneas, who were a couple. They went to, go travel, and Aeneas got a vision from a god of war and said, you have to go, I think it was Mercury, you have to go and fight the war. So he took him and his sailors, and Dido was devastated, and the whole thing was a curse from a bunch of witches. And the witches were happy, obviously, because they separated the two. Dido is devastated. This is her lamentation. She does end up taking her life, but here you go. Spoiler. So, I know we didn't get to listen to anything in detail, but I just wanted to give you guys examples of everything that I talked about. This opera is very tragic. It's very sad. If you actually listen to her lament, it could make you feel the emotion of sadness, because it's a pretty well. I mean, that's why it's still around and still being performed. I feel like I've been nonstop. Any questions, thoughts, concerns, anything that you want to say or do before we finish for the day?
I have one question.
Yes.
Don't we have a test today?
We're not going to have a test today. I'm going to postpone it to next week.
Yay.
Anything else? The reason being is that I really need everyone who is performing in their in Saturn to be practicing and make a really, really, really good performance for this weekend.
Meanwhile, I'll just be down here just crying.
Yep, except for you, crying. Anyone else? Okay, well, I hope to see all of you, or most all of you, in a little bit. So we can say bye to our seniors. Because
Wait, when is that?
7th period, and beyond.
Oh, okay.
So
We just gotta speed up the next period, guys.
I just skipped my 7th period.
I'll email. No, you cannot skip your 7th period. I'll email you guys right now the Google Calendar link to the 7th period class so that you can join it. Okay, so I'll email it to everyone right now.
Classes?
Well, thank you.
I think I would just. I've had issues with that link for some reason, kind of a pain. So I'm just going to email it to you guys just so you can see it, just because it's easier that way.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Oh wait.
I guess see you in 20 minutes, give or take.
Yes.
We'll see you, Miss Burke.
Bye.
Bye.